Needless Things Podcast. Hey, Phantomaniacs! Welcome to the newest episode of the Needless Things Podcast, where we talk about toys, movies, music, and all manner of pop culture dorkery. I am your host, Dave, and I do not currently have internet access. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen with this episode. Hopefully, by the time I have to go to bed tonight, because I got to get up and work at 3:30 in the morning, I'll be able to upload this thing. If not, then for the first time in 4 years, maybe 5, there will not be a new episode of the Needless Things Podcast available at 11 a.m. Central Time on a Friday. I've hit it every single week, but I do not currently have internet, which is going to make the news a bit of a problem, because all I have are my notes that I usually have, my note, I pull up the website or page or whatever that I'm referring to, and then go off the information there. And it looks like I might be doing all of this from memory, which of course will be a fun exercise for nobody. I'm going to try and bring up... Oh, it's back! Thank goodness! We don't know how much we rely on something until it's gone. And, actually, I take that back because I knew exactly how much I relied on the internet to upload my freaking podcast. Okay, so the internet is back. Hopefully it will remain back until I can get everything uploaded, so you will have a new episode tomorrow. So you'll be listening to this fresh and new. So let's go ahead and get on with the news. Well, the first piece of news I don't really need the internet for. It's just to tell you that Episode 1 of Audible Interlude, a G.I. Joe podcast, is available now. It released this past Monday. There will be new episodes of this G.I. Joe podcast the first Monday of every month. So you can look forward to that. I didn't want to get overwhelmed with podcasts here. I've got enough on my plate, but I just had a hankering for a G.I. Joe podcast. I knew exactly who I wanted the hosts to be, and I think we've put together a really cool, fun show that is a great format that's different from this show. So even if you've listened to and enjoyed G.I. Joe episodes that we have done here in the past, Audible Interlude is something very, very different that I think you can get on board with. You can follow Audible Interlude Podcast on Instagram and on Twitter. It has its own account that will be specifically G.I. Joe, and I'm going to make an effort to make all G.I. Joe related content exclusive to those feeds. You will not see G.I. Joe content on the regular Needless Things or Phantom Troublemaker Instagram pages in the future, except for when Needless Things shares new episodes of Audible Interlude. So Audible Interlude Podcast, go check that out. The premiere episode where we break down the new Hasbro G.I. Joe website is up, and then the official first episode, complete with music by the incredible Andy Samford, is available now. So it's something I'm very proud of. It's very special to me, and I'm looking forward to recording the second episode very soon. Execute Chapter 66 also released a new episode this week, which with 2 new podcast, or technically I guess 3, including this one, 3 new podcast episodes coming out this week. That's why there's new content, no new content on the Needless Things YouTube channel. There's only so much I can do and only so much I feel the need to do. And I would have loved to have, something up on YouTube, but there's just been a lot going on. And I didn't have time to give the unboxings I currently have the attention they deserve. And then I've still got the one video that I've been teasing frickin' forever now that I don't have the time for it. But I got some vacation coming up very, very soon here, and I plan to get a lot of cool stuff done. So pay attention. Speaking of a lot of cool stuff, and this isn't really news. This is all just Needless Things stuff, but whatever. You know what? I'll wait until after the official news to tell you about this one. So, new Execute Chapter 66, Darth Plagueis, Darth Platypus. Episode 66, Execute Chapter 66, Darth Platypus is available now as well. I'm kidding, it's Darth Plagueis. I wish Chad was here to help me. The Predator 2 City Demon Ultimate Predator from NECA is going to be available on July 23rd. Supposedly, it's going to be in stores in Walmart for $29.96. I'll believe that when I see it, and maybe it will. Maybe it will show up, and immediately the scalpers will be out in waves to snatch them all up, so we'll never see one on the shelf. It will be available online through the NECA store. Excuse me, NECA is how I pronounced it for so many years. NECAstore.com. Now, I have an update on my NECA store gift certificate that Mrs. Troublemaker got for me for Father's Day. It is currently useless because while they have stocked the NECA store with tons of new product, it's only for shipping outside of the U.S. Little infuriating. But it says that this Predator will be available on July 23rd through the NECA store, U.S. and international. So hopefully I will be able to use my gift certificate. I'm sorry I'm having so much trouble talking. I had a very, very long day at work. I'm going to have 3 more very, very long days ahead of me. I'm a little frazzled. The power going out really threw me off. Hang in there, you guys. Hang in there. But this thing looks awesome. It is from Predator 2, the iconic scene where the lightning courses through his... not lightning, it's like electricity. He's like stepping through a puddle or something, I think. And his chameleon circuit, that's Doctor Who. That's the wrong terminology. His camouflage, holographic, whatever doodad shorts out, and he gets this really cool lightning effect all over his body. So this is the Predator 2 Ultimate figure with a awesome, like, translucent lightning deco. It looks amazing, and I really like, as much as I've talked in the past about how much of the Predators all kind of look alike, these kinds of decos really stand out and really look different and cool on the shelf. So I'm pretty stoked about this guy. Also coming on July 23rd, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles coming out of their shells. San Diego, these were all going to be San Diego Comic-Con exclusives. Box set featuring all 4 turtles in their concert gear from the live Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles coming out of their shells concert tour that you can find on YouTube. Now, I want to be as nice as I can about this because I know some of our younger listeners, and when I say some of our younger listeners, I mean those who are around 30, love the Coming Out of Their Shells tour. Love it. And that's great. I think it's super. I think it's really neat that NECA's doing this. I think it's a great set if you're a fan of this. And there's a deluxe set that will be available online from Target. There's a regular box set that's just the 4 turtles in a really cool box with cover art, by the way, by the incredible James Groman. That's going to be available supposedly in store in Targets. And then there's a merchandise bundle that's going to be available from Target.com that has that box set, a t-shirt, a laminate, 4 guitar picks, and some other stuff, like cool concert gear that I'd be lying if I said I wasn't tempted by that. That set's $150. The regular set's, I think, $130, which is, for this kind of thing, is I think is very reasonable because the box really does look great. The figures look great. They put a lot of care into this goofy, terrible concept. So I think these are going to be a big hit, like all of their exclusive Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles stuff. So keep an eye out for those. That's also July the 23rd. Let's see, what else? That's pretty much it. NECA released a really cool sort of checklist of upcoming Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles exclusives. Wave 3 of the cartoon figures are going to be hitting in 3 separate shipments, July 16th, August 6th, and August 20th. Metalhead hits on July 16th. Now, I don't know if that means online and in store, so keep your eyes on Target.com. Maybe you'll get lucky and be able to get them there. And then the Bebop and Rocksteady figures are going to be restocked on September 3rd, which is very cool. Those are great figures. I think anybody, I got a set. I'm not collecting that line. They just looked so good, I bought them. And then they're the Walmart exclusive, boo! Casey Jones and Raphael Disguised, which came out on 6/29 and is gone. I have been to 3 different Walmart stores and saw the price tag and no figures at all. So scalpers jumped right on those. Fortunately, I got my set. And I have another set pre-ordered from Zaavi, ZAAVI.com, that cost way more, but I'm going to need a set for my son, and I am not canceling that pre-order because I don't think I'm going to find them regularly. July 6th, which was a few days ago, the movie Leonardo and Donatello 2-pack and Michelangelo and Raphael 2-pack hit Walmart's supposedly. I haven't seen those yet either. I haven't looked on Walmart.com because I don't need them. And then Super Shredder is August 10th. And finally, the new Arcade Wave, which is a specialty stores exclusive, which I'm guessing means you can get it from like Big Bad or wherever, hits on July 14th. So lots of cool news from NECA. And of course, the online version of San Diego Comic-Con is right around the corner. Tons of stuff there. Action Figure Attack, who works for Mattel, has already announced that they're going to have a lot of cool stuff going on online that weekend. I'm really excited about that. If you're not following Action Figure Attack on Instagram, you really should be. And I think that is all the news for now. I realize I should probably stop griping about being tired every episode, because now that I have a regular work schedule for the foreseeable future, Thursday is when I will put the episodes together, like do final production, put all the pieces together. And now I work every Thursday. I work every Wednesday and Thursday. Sometimes I have Friday off. Sometimes I have Friday through Tuesday off. But sometimes I work Wednesday through Sunday, so that does alternate. But I have every Monday and Tuesday off. It's really, really weird. But I have regular days off that I can count on now. But I will have worked every single Thursday. So I've got to adjust to doing this regularly on Thursday night. And doing it, I've got to bring the pep and the energy and the vim and vigor and pizzazz after a 12-hour workday. I've got to get used to that. And believe you me, it is tough, you guys. So today's episode is very, very cool. Hopefully the start of something. Because I talked to a great gentleman from Australia about his personal history with toy collecting and the differences between American and Australian toy collecting. And there's some really interesting things that I grew up with that he really didn't, things that were bigger there than they were here. It's a great conversation. It's fascinating. And Adam is a really cool guy. I definitely plan to have him back on the show at some point. He's already hit me with a couple of great ideas. I was going to say good. I had to immediately upgrade to great ideas for episode concepts that I wish I'd been aware of earlier so I could go ahead and slot them into the schedule. But we are packed like almost through September at this point. But definitely great conversation. And I would like to put this out there. If you are listening to this and you grew up in a country that is not the continental United States. Now that includes like Alaska, Hawaii, because I feel like there are probably interesting things to discuss there as well. If you are outside of the continental U.S., please go to Phantom Troublemaker on Instagram. This is the best way to send me a message, I think. Phantom Troublemaker on Instagram, and hit me up and let me know that you'd like to come on the show and talk about the differences in collecting where you grew up and where I grew up. And if you listen to today's episode, which I would expect you will after sitting through this 15-minute introduction, surely you're going to listen to the meat of the episode with my incredible guest, Adam Toplass. Give it a listen. Think to yourself, oh, I could do that. I could go on that show and talk about toy collecting in Venezuela, or toy collecting in London, or toy collecting in Zimbabwe. You get what I'm saying here. So shoot me a message, Phantom Troublemaker on Instagram. I would love to talk to you. I would love for this to be an ongoing series where we just talk to people around the world about different stuff. I already know a couple of potential candidates, so we may be able to get a couple episodes in the can before the end of the year. But, yeah, I think it's a cool topic, and I'm happy that this one worked out so well. One last thing before we get to the meat of the episode. I want to mention that Needless Con is coming. You can imagine what it is. It will be a series of episodes meant to sort of replicate or represent the energy and the fun of the panels that we would have done at Dragon Con. Now, I am not doing video. I know a lot of people are like posting Zoom chats or doing things like that. I would want any videos I did to have a certain look, to be a certain standard. And if you want an example of what I'm thinking of, go check out the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast's History of Hasbro episode for an idea of what I would need Needless Things presentations to look like. And I will tell you right now, I do not have the time or the motivation to do that. I sadly do not have a Mark Sterling. I am the Mark Sterling and the Zack Ryder and the Brian Myers. And more these days, I'm feeling like Brian Myers, let me just tell you. But, so it'll be all audio, but they will be special episodes. They will be panels that were intended to be presented at Dragon Con this year, which is canceled if you have not heard. It sucks, but it's what's best. And we at Needless Things will be doing, a few different special things to celebrate dorkiness in a way that is appropriate for the con season. So stay tuned for those. Keep your eyes out for those. And I haven't decided yet where they're going to fall in the schedule, but I do have the episodes all planned out. And as a matter of fact, we're recording the first one Monday night. So there you go. So there you go. Sit back, grab yourself. Oh, not a Foster's. Don't grab a Foster's. I think that's bad. I don't think Australians actually drink that stuff. I hope not, because it's gross. Just grab your favorite beverage, wherever it's from. Grab a Stone Cold IPA, if you're the kind of person that likes IPAs. And sit back, relax, and listen to a couple of people from different parts of the globe talk about what they have in common. And some stuff they don't. Phantomaniacs, I've got something crazy in store for you guys today. I went on sort of a random hunt a few weeks ago looking for somebody to talk about toys with. I know, hard to imagine. And managed to catch somebody who lives in Australia. And rather than the conversation that I wanted to have at the time, I decided it would be really cool to talk about some of the differences between Australian and American collecting, find out some experiences from outside of our borders in the thing that we love so much and we talk about so much here on the show, toy collecting. And now we're going to sit down and have a conversation with Adam Toplass. Welcome to the show.
G'day, mate. How's it going?
Oh, that's awesome. What a wonderful way to start. Next, you're going to say something about a Barbie and then maybe something about a knife, because that's the only stereotypes Americans know.
Yes, exactly right. I see you've played Knifey Spoony before.
So, originally I had thrown it out there that we got to talking in the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast Facebook group, which one of my favorite podcasts. Nothing wrong with saying that here. Mm-hmm. And I had kind of thrown out a thing where I wanted to talk to somebody about the differences in collecting vintage toys and modern toys. And you responded, but then when I found out where you were from, I was like, oh, I think there's a more interesting conversation to be had here. So tell me a little bit about what you're collecting now before we dip back into the past.
Yeah, well, I think like maybe a lot of people can relate to, since I joined the Major Wrestling Facebook group and started listening to that podcast. I've got quite itchy on a few new things that I haven't been collecting in the past. But overall, I used to collect wrestling toys a lot when, around mid-2000s. And then, I don't know, I kind of gave them to my nephew, and I was still watching and really into it. But for some reason, I just sort of fell off from the toys. And then when I met my partner, we were talking about AJ Styles, and I said I couldn't believe that he, was in the WWE. So she went and bought me an AJ Styles Elite, because at the time I thought, wow, we might not get too many of these. Boy,
yeah.
If only I knew now what I knew then. That kind of started my Mattel era wrestling toy collection, and then for Christmas I got a ring, and that just sent it off. So currently the main thing I collect is WWE Mattel toys. I don't really get into the retro ones for myself. And also I'm starting to get into some basketball cards and any other, a few pops. I have to be I have to hold restraint with the pops, otherwise that could just get out of hand. But outside of that, it's any other little knickknacks and cool things that pop up in loot crates and stuff like that usually goes in the collector bin.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned pops. Those things are pretty much inescapable. Like we don't really collect them, but we somehow have. I bet if I went through the house, we've got like 50 of them.
Yeah. Because it's the reason I was going to say, the reason for that is because they're such obscure references. If you know somebody who is like a massive fan of Billy Madison and you see a Billy Madison pop, you're like, oh, that's the perfect gift for that person, because Billy Madison, who makes toys of that? But it just applies to every single thing that's ever existed. So it's crazy. Yeah,
there's almost, if you are looking, because I would rather give somebody a little figure than like a gift certificate or something like that. And you can find a pop for anyone. Anybody you know, there is some pop that's applicable to that person for sure. But we're not here to talk about pops. We're here to talk about like any action figures at all. And it's funny you mentioned the wrestling figures of the early 2000s, because that was when I was probably heaviest into wrestling figure collecting, because I was playing, at the time I had a group of friends that would come over every Wednesday night, and we would watch the TNA pay-per-views, the TNA wrestling back when they had Wednesday night pay-per-views. And then we would play, at first it was WWF No Mercy, and then it was like SmackDown Shut Your Mouth, SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, and SmackDown versus Raw. This was years that we were getting together and playing these games, and we had our created characters that we would use, just completely made-up characters. But then on the side, I booked my own, not really figure-fed, but video game-fed, where I had SmackDown versus Raw, were separate shows that were in competition, and on the Wrestling Figure Podcast, they talk about sitting on the floor and booking your shows with the figures in front of you. And for me, at the time, the figures that were coming out were corresponding so well with the game rosters that I ended up just collecting the figures and having my rosters as a collection.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I literally I still have the shelves. I made blue shelves with silver struts, red shelves with black struts. So I had my Raw shelves and my SmackDown shelves, and my full rosters represented with the the titles and the championships and everything, all the Ruthless Aggression style figures. And I was way into that for years, and then I kind of fell off playing the games, and I ended up, I think my son has most of the figures now, and I just kind of got away from collecting really before the Jakks era even ended. But then a few years ago, Mattel got me with this, William Regal's my favorite wrestler. And Mattel put out a really nice-looking William Regal, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. And you know how it goes. You buy one figure from one collection, and you're stuck.
Yeah. I'd say for me, that was probably the Chris Jericho entrance Elite with the shiny jacket and the shiny pants.
Yeah, yeah.
That was one that I saw in the shops. I'm a massive Jericho fan, so as soon as I saw that figure, I thought, you know what, I'll just grab this one and keep it. Like, this is the one. And I actually had that figure a little while, but that one's, I've let it breathe since then, so now it's in the collection.
And then that's exactly what happened. Is like, I was just going to buy that Regal, and then I've kept up with wrestling probably since '96. I've really watched just about every all the big shows, WCW, WWE, whatever. Like, really kept up with it. But at the time, I was a little more invested, and so I started buying another one here and there. And then a few years ago, sold it all. There are lots of Elites in there, probably worth a couple $100 now, and I'm kicking myself. Never. One thing that I've learned from a local toy dealer: never sell your toys. Don't do it.
Yeah, I've actually been selling a few of them lately. But
no, stop.
Put this way, I don't know how sought after Aiden English is really going to be in 6 years' time, but no, I realized my collection was starting to get a little bit abstract, and I was buying things that I get home and I wouldn't even unbox it or anything because I'm like, I don't even know what part of my collection this even applies to anymore. So I kind of set a few criteria in my head of specific themes that I'm going to try and focus on. So I'm looking at like factions. My current project is the entire WrestleMania 19 card and all the accurate attires, or as close as I can get. And then just old school guys and guys from the 90s. So having factions gives me a few new ones, but there's not that many new figures that I really need to get to fill those things. So it's taken the pressure off a little bit. But the guy I sold the Roman Reigns and the Aiden English and my Nia Jax Basic to was very happy. So good for him.
Well, and that's when I restarted after the Wrestling Figure Podcast launched, and I kind of got back into it again. I tried to have rules. I loved WCW, late 90s, Monday Night Wars. That's my favorite. I love that era. I love Nitro. Like, to me, like, Raw in general probably ended up presenting a better product overall. But I just love Nitro so much. So I was like, all right, I'm going to collect WCW figures from Mattel. That's it. That was my rule. And of course, I have since gone far beyond that because there are only so many WCW figures that Mattel puts out.
Mm.
So you see something like the Ultimate Bret Hart that's a cool looking like 1994 Bret Hart. I'm not collecting that era, but then I make myself an excuse. Well, this is an Ultimate figure. This is the ultimate Bret Hart. I'm a Bret Hart fan, so I should really have this figure, right? Of course.
Yeah, of course.
How hard is it for you to sort of follow your collecting guidelines?
I'm doing okay. I mean, I still, like, for example, there was a Pete Dunne figure that came out a couple of months ago that doesn't really fit into anything, but I really like Pete Dunne and Velveteen, so there's still a few that seep through the cracks. But honestly, my collection is getting so big. Like logistically, I probably just need to be a little bit more. Let's say instead of getting 5 figures for $50, maybe I'll put that 50 aside and get $150 figure instead.
And I've seen that that's one thing that seems to happen as collectors as we get a little older, start to look at maybe rather than just collecting everything I want to collect, I'll put my money towards larger, nicer pieces. One, for a space concern, but two, because we're grown-ups now. We kind of want nicer things.
We got the keys to the castle.
Right. So let's go back, though, because this is something that's very interesting to me. I'd like to go back and sort of track some of the differences in collecting, because from what I understand, conversion-wise, stuff is more expensive over there.
Yeah, so the Australian dollar is never in better shape than the American dollar, basically. So anything that, you see as American price, instantly you have to add on, maybe an extra $40 to $60 Australian for postage and the conversion rate and everything like that. eBay, I like eBay because it transfers everything into Australian currency automatically, even if it's listed in a different currency. But yeah, it makes collecting a lot more. You have to be more specific about what you want. Like, you can't just say, well, maybe I'll drop $130 on this figure because I'm pretty sure this is the one that I want. But now you have to do your homework and make sure you know exactly what set it is and what thing it is. Don't accidentally buy a deluxe aggression like I did, thinking that it was a Mattel Elite.
Oh no. Oh,
well, in my defense, he did advertise it as a Mattel Elite, so that's not entirely my fault.
That's one of the things that drives me nuts about eBay is you'll see a listing that, for instance, William Regal, and it'll say Jax, Mattel, WWE, WWF, Elite, Deluxe. It'll have literally every kind of wrestling figure that's ever been made in the description.
Yeah. I can't stand it, yeah.
As far as just getting out and getting to stores, what's the selection like over there? Like when a new wave or new assortment comes out, how easy is it to just get your hands on product?
Well, much like you guys, we're feeling the absence of Toys R Us. That was our big toy chain that would get a lot of the more different stuff or some of the exclusive stuff that you guys would see over there. So that disappeared, I don't know, about 12 months ago or so, maybe a bit more, maybe 2 years now. Other than that, there's a spattering of small toy outlets. They're basically Toys R Us, but they're just much smaller operations, and there's a lot less of them, and they have a smaller variety. But they just mark up. Their stock is usually pretty old, to be honest. And usually the good stuff gets picked up, and then the rest of it just will sit there for months. And then we've got the department stores. We've got Target over here and another department store called Big W that still stocks the WWE figures. Kmart no longer does for some reason. But other than those stores, and obviously you get your hardcore collector stores. But I mean, there's maybe one or two of those in each sort of state. Like, they're the kind of stores that, okay, let's go for an hour and a half drive to the collector store because it's on the other side of town, kind of thing. There's not a great deal of those around, and they mark up like hell, and rightly so. So that's how they make their money. So
yeah, it's funny. So, we following the wrestling figure podcast on YouTube, and I promise we're not going to focus on that the entire show, but it's a great informative podcast, not just for wrestling figures, but just for an idea of what it's like to be a collector. But in, looking at their YouTube channel, it seems like there are collector stores all over America, and they're not. It's just that those guys traveled so much that they'd hit all these different spots. But for me, there's nowhere within 3 hours of me that's the kind of store those guys go to.
Yeah. So when I'm watching those videos, you know how when you own a house cat and it's an indoor cat and it's not allowed to go outside, so it just spends all its time sitting at the window looking outside.
Right.
That's me watching those videos where they go to those collector stores. I'm like, oh my God, I could drop $60 in that store and come out the happiest I've ever been in my life. Like,
well, and that's the funny thing about it is, like, on the one hand, it bums me out that I don't have anything like that nearby, but on the other hand, it's probably a good thing.
Yeah, you'd become a regular. They'd be like, hey, Dave's here. What's going on?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, my gosh. So let's go back a little bit. An interesting distinction happens when you are someone who's collected toys. When you're a kid, you know, that's when we start collecting. That's when we start wanting, like, each figure, each vehicle, whatever the case may be. And then at some point you turn into a collector where you're consciously searching out each piece. What's the first toy line, one, that you remember just sort of playing with, having as a kid and really loving, and then two, that you really think of yourself as collecting?
Cowabunga, dude.
Yes,
For both.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was born in 86, and I think we got Ninja Turtles maybe a couple of years after the States did. Maybe not, but it didn't get really big until... It was definitely bigger over there than it was here, but we would get it a little bit later on in a big way. So I have very, very vivid memories of coming home from school one day and walking in my bedroom, and my mum had cleaned the entire bedroom top to bottom, new sheets, bed was made, everything looked perfect, and there was a Leonardo figurine sitting on the top of the bed. And I lost my shit because that was the first action figure that I wanted that wasn't just, you know, some generic $2, you know, kid's toy. I was maybe 5 at this point, so I was starting to get, you know, some good expensive toys that I actually knew what they were and I was excited for. And the other memory of acquiring the Turtles that sticks out, and I actually still have this letter. I can take a photo and share it in the Facebook group. I won a coloring in competition in the Sunday newspaper, and I got a letter from Leonardo, Raphael, Donatello, and Michelangelo congratulating me on my victory and telling me that they'd sent me a Raphael figurine as a prize.
Whoa, that's awesome.
Don't get me wrong, they didn't put a great deal of effort into it. It's just typed up with I think it may have like a Fox logo in the corner or whatever, like the company logo up in the top corner of this letter. But my mum saved it and put it in a book for me when I turned 21, so I was shocked to see that there. But yeah, that was the first line where I was really looking for, I need to get Michelangelo now. Now I need to get, can I have 3-foot soldiers, please? What? I only get one. Come on. You know, we had all those conversations, and I didn't collect all of them, but I had enough of a collection where I could sit down and play with them for hours and lose all the weapons and, you know, lose all the parts like every other kid, I guess.
Well, and that line really lent itself to the collector mentality because all of the characters were so distinctive, were so interesting that, like, even the ones that maybe you didn't go as crazy for, you kind of felt like you had to have because they were somebody different and somebody cool.
Yeah, we didn't get a great deal of variety of turtle figures over here. Like, there was a lot that I listened to your, which, by the way, I have a bone to pick with your top 10 Ninja Turtle action figures.
Please bring it.
But a lot of those I had never seen or even heard of, like those toys. Like, we just never really got a great deal of stock over here. We still got the vehicles and we got all the main stuff, but I think maybe some of the lesser known stuff, it just never reached our shores. But I would just like to posthumously add Metalhead as the #1 entrant on the all-time Ninja Turtles figure list. So I just want to throw that out there.
You know what? I can't even argue that. And you had mentioned that to me prior to recording, and it was between Metalhead and Fugitoid for me on the list. The only reason Fugitoid won was because of his presence in the original comics, because Metalhead, honestly, let's be real, he's got vac metal, technically much cooler looking figure. He's a freaking robot turtle.
It worked in so many scenarios. Like, you could do so many things with Metalhead.
And have you seen this new NECA Metalhead that's coming out?
Yeah, I did. See, and that's where I get worried, because I get itchy for NECA Ninja Turtle toys. I'm like, no, I can't keep expanding this collection, because then I'll need to get all of those and it'll become a whole thing. But it's beautiful. I love it.
Dude, and I'm in the same boat, because I get the NECA movie Turtles, because that 1990 Ninja Turtles movie, I adore it. I love it. I think it's probably the best comic book movie that we've ever gotten. So I've bought those, but I haven't bought any of NECA's other stuff. Well, I've gotten some of it for my son, but then I'm in Target, and you can probably relate to this. I'm in Target, and that Bebop and Rocksteady animated set that was so hard to find here for so long, well, they've got it on the shelf. Now, I already found one for my son, but I literally just found the one and was just like, okay, I got it for him. I'm good to go. But then later on found another one, and I'm like, man, those are really nice figures. It would be a shame, with as many people in the world that want these figures, if I just walked by them, toy collector that I am, and did not buy them. So I bought them. And
yes, you had a responsibility, okay?
Yes, I felt like as the host of the Needless Things podcast, I felt like I owed it to the world to own those two figures that everybody thinks are so incredible and so hard to find. So I bought them, but I will say this. They are still in the box. I have not opened them, and I think I have decided that once Target, because in America, Target's not even taking returns right now. Because of the COVID-19 going on.
Wow.
Yeah, they're not taking returns. But I think I've pretty much decided once they are, I need to take that back and not have it. Although I should probably put it up for grabs somewhere. I guess if I were truly a responsible toy collector, I'd give somebody else the opportunity to have it.
we've just set up this big responsibility, and they're like, just take it back. It's fine.
Yeah, right. I found this holy grail, and I'm just gonna go return it. But yeah, because I don't want to get into that, man. Because even though the cartoon isn't really my Ninja Turtles fandom, like I love the original toy line, I love the movie, but the cartoon is not as much my thing. Yeah, those figures are incredible, and I like them, and I know the more I see. Like, well, I've got Rocksteady and Bebop, so I should probably have the Turtles too. Oh, look, and there's Shredder. Oh, and now I need Metalhead. You know how it goes, man.
I do. No, I definitely feel your pain on all of that. But there was another line that I wanted to mention as well from years ago. It was probably the first toy collection that I got that feeling of completion with for getting all of the available figures, which, although I just saw that apparently there was a series 2 that never came out in Australia, so now I'm like, whatever. But that's the Jurassic Park toy line.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I didn't think I got all of the dinosaurs. I didn't get like the Tyrannosaurus Rex and all that, but I got all of the human characters, and I got one of the Jeeps. And my family was middle class. Like we didn't get all of everything. We used some of some things, kind of thing. But for some reason this year specifically, my mum, bless her, she sent all my uncles and aunties out to get a different figure each. So I got all of the figures for 1 year from different relatives around Christmas time, and the really rare one was Robert Muldoon. I don't know if he was rare over there as well, but over here he was impossible to find, and my auntie nearly had to throw down with some lady in a Target store over Robert Muldoon. No joke. She said it got quite aggressive. This woman's like, I need this for my son, and my auntie's like, I need this for my nephew. So I ended up getting all of them, which was just, and I love that movie. It's my favorite movie of all time. It was just the perfect capsule of time for my childhood.
Well, and that is very much a thing, man. It's interesting to me because I was born literally exactly 10 years before you were. So Jurassic Park, I have noticed, because just a lot of people I have on the show, Ryan, who's on the commentaries, is 10 years younger than me. It just kind of works out that I end up talking to a lot of people right around 10 years younger than me, and my sister is 8 years younger than me. So I have that frame of reference for pop culture to where that your generation, particularly, obviously most of my experiences with Americans, but Jurassic Park and Lion King are massive. Whereas for me, like, obviously I'm aware of that stuff. I read Jurassic Park. I thought the movie was awesome, but it didn't have that same cultural impact just because I was a little outside of that magical age range where it hit you guys. But my sister was collecting the Jurassic Park toys or playing, she was, let's see, what was it, 90, when did that come out? 91, 92? 93. Okay, 93. So she would have been, let's see, 6, 9, right about 9 years old at that point. So prime, still playing with toys age. And definitely prime. See, that was the magic of Jurassic Park, is it's not just that it was a pop culture thing. It's not just that there was a toy line. It's that it was freaking dinosaurs. And dinosaurs to a kid are the coolest thing ever. Because when I was a kid, there was Dino Riders, which was essentially Jurassic Park with lasers.
It's not the laser raptors from Kung Fury.
No. But close. It was for the listeners who may not know. There was a line called Dino Riders that was all of these realistic dinosaur toys. Just incredible Tyrannosaurus Rex and Apatosaurus and like all the cool dinosaurs. No Velociraptors, because they really didn't become a thing until Jurassic Park. But the story was that these alien races crashed on Earth during the time of the dinosaurs and then strapped a bunch of high-tech equipment to the dinosaurs and used it to fight each other.
Yes, I'm looking at a picture of it. I've seen these in other people's collections, and I was always like, what the fuck is that?
Right. It was... It came out like I was way too immersed in G.I. Joe at the time when Dino Riders came out, but I wanted Dino Riders. It was, like you said, you had, like for me, G.I. Joe was my big focus from like 82 to 87, and I had a few other things here and there, but like it was mostly, all right, David, what would you like now? Well, it's got to be the G.I. Joe hovercraft or a G.I. Joe tank or whatever the case may be. And every once in a while I'd get something else. But yeah, Dino Riders were these incredibly realistic dinosaur toys, but then they clipped all these rockets and missiles and lasers and bullshit onto them so the aliens could fight. So that was my magical dinosaur line. But for you guys, you got like the real deal Jurassic Park with they felt different. Like they had that sort of soft vinyl rubbery skin.
Yeah, with the bumps on it, almost like a basketball kind of thing. Like, it was very textured.
Right. The texture and the paint job, and then some of them had the little pieces that would come out like they'd gotten bitten.
I was never a fan of that, but hey, it was very iconic for the time.
Well, it was, to me, it was okay because you could put them in and kind of pretend like they weren't even there, because I was never a big fan of battle damage. Like, if those dinosaurs had permanent, like, scratches and gouges and stuff that never went away, I wouldn't have liked that. But the fact that they were these little plugs that sort of went in and they could look mostly normal again, like, I was okay with it.
Yeah, honestly, the dinosaur range from the Jurassic Park toys, I never really found that to be that impressed. I think I was more into the human characters and the vehicles and stuff like that. Obviously, the T-Rex toy looked amazing. That was the one that I always wanted to get, but they kind of just went full like jobber dinosaurs with the lower releases, and they're releasing stuff that's not even in the movie, and it was very a lot of the dinosaurs that came out over here in Australia, they ended up in like $2 stores like years and years later. Like they would have like 1,000 Dimetrodons for like 50 cents.
Well, and
should have got a bunch. I'm sure I could sell them for more than 50 cents. That's for sure.
And that was the thing. There were that's hilarious, jobber dinosaurs, because there were. You're right. They threw out a bunch of, because my sister's collecting from a slightly different viewpoint, because she was like, oh, these are just cool dinosaurs. I like them. They're, the Dimetrodon's cool. But yeah, as far as like dinosaurs are just fighting and being cool, you really only have the T-Rex and the Velociraptors as like the aggressive, these guys are going to mess each other up dinosaurs.
Well, I was quite happy with my Frankenstein effort. I had the Dilophosaurus, but if you pulled the hand down, its mouth would open and it would like roar. But the cool thing with that one was it came with a removable frill that would go around its neck. So what I would do is take the frill off of the electronic one, put the frill on the Dilophosaurus where you could fill it up with water and actually spit, and that was my authentic movie Dilophosaurus that could spit, and it had the frill.
That's great. So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Jurassic Park, landmark toy lines of that era for sure. But we've talked about like little things here and there that maybe something comes out and looks cool. Were there any other toy lines that maybe you only had like a figure or two from, or something that caught your eye that maybe you didn't even ever find?
My collection was definitely a hodgepodge. I think it's because I got most of my toys from our local supermarket. They had a little toy section, and they never had a great variety, but they would always get different things in. So, towards the late 90s, I had like the Men in Black animated series toys, like Last Action Hero toys, even though I'd never seen the movie as a kid. I got Arnold, and I got the villain guy with the axe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Just if it kind of had its moment in the sun, then I probably got like one from that line, or the ones that didn't sell and would get marked down and things like that. So I had to get creative with my my toy universes. But the axe guy from Last Action Hero is a good villain to have. He looks terrible.
Now here's a moment where we have to take a turn for the tragic and discuss a little bit of a downer. Out of the toys you had as a kid, do you still have any of them or have access to them in any way?
So my mum found a box at her house. I'm sure you've heard this story before. I haven't seen what's in it yet, so I'll have to get back to you on exactly what's in it, but she said there are Ninja Turtles in it. So,
oh, man.
The only thing I can think of, it will probably only be a couple, and knowing my luck, it'll be my beach volleyball Donatello, or baseball Raphael, or something like that.
Right.
or Shredder with no shirt, where he's all jacked and ripped.
Well, and it's funny how differently our parents sort of viewed those things. I shared this story on a recent episode, and I'll just mention it briefly again here now, just because I think it's so funny. My mom a few years ago called when I was on the phone with her. She said, "Oh, by the way, one of our neighbors cleaning things out, and they gave me your old Millennium Falcon that I had given them. And do you want it back?" I said, "Oh my gosh, the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. It's Han Solo's ship that I had as a kid, of course. Yes, I want it back. Yes, please. Next time you're in town, bring it down. Absolutely." And so she brings it over, and it is not in any way, shape, or form the Millennium Falcon. It's actually the Cobra Terrordrome from G.I. Joe. And that's how... and look, my mom was pretty on top of pop pop culture stuff back in the day. She took me to see every movie. She kept me up with every toy line. Like back then, she knew that stuff. She knew what I had. She kept up with it. She, was really on it. But, now, none of that stuff really matters to her. And I just think it's a funny, she maintained that inventory as long as she had to, and then she kind of let it go.
Oh, God. It's funny. You mentioned that she took you to see movies. This actually kind of ties into Jurassic Park as well. And I love this story. This is one of my favorite things that ever happened in my childhood. My mum and I went to see a movie. Now, this movie had Sam Neill in it. It was fresh off the heels of Jurassic Park. The TV ads made it look like it was about a time-traveling spaceship.
Oh, no. I know where you're going. Oh, no.
So I don't watch horror movies. My mum definitely doesn't watch horror movies.
Oh,
the two of us go to the drive-in to see Dr. Alan Grant, traveling space through time.
Sure, why not?
And the movie we're talking about, if you don't know, is Event Horizon.
Oh, my gosh.
To that movie, think of the very sudden, hard left turn that movie takes.
It's Hellraiser in space. It's one of my favorite movies, but it's a nightmare.
Yeah, we left shortly after things went off the rails.
Oh, good.
We're like, get out of here. Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad to hear that. Oh, that's so much worse than my accidental mom story. Which for the listeners, I'm sure everybody knows Event Horizon, but if you don't, it's a movie that to this day legitimately unsettles me when I watch it, and I love it. And,
me too. I've only seen it once.
Well, and Shout Factory's actually getting ready to put out a collector's edition that we've been waiting years to see. It's coming out later this year. But yes, Sam Neill, the grumpy, affable Dr. Alan Grant from Jurassic Park, it turns into a maniac pinhead in space, basically, over the course of this movie. Yes.
Psychopath. Yep.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's worse than mine. My relatively gentle in comparison mom made a mistake story. When I was much, much younger, if I was sick home from school, she would go to the local videotape rental place and just rent a couple of kids' movies for me and bring them home. And she rented a movie called Troll. That in the pantheon of horror movies is relatively inoffensive, but to a probably 7 or 8 year old kid, I guess, who's
nephew,
not expecting Sonny Bono to turn into a giant mushroom, is a little much. And she just thought it was oh, this looks like, it's got puppets in it. Everybody likes puppets, and rented it, and I had no idea what I was for. So that was, but I would much rather deal with that than freaking Event Horizon. Oh my gosh, that's great.
It bonded us, put it that way.
Yeah, right. Oh yeah, that's got to be such a great shared experience of horror.
So we survived the Event Horizon together. We got out of there alive, so everything was fine.
So, as far as modern stuff goes, or maybe even not necessarily modern stuff, but over the last 10 or so years, what is some stuff that, even if it's not on your list of I'm collecting this, what's some stuff that's maybe caught your eye or been interesting to you in the toy world?
Yeah, I think my collection, the little bug inside me that has this urge to collect things, I think it got fulfilled with DVDs and CDs for a long period of time there. So there was, probably from my mid-teens, I guess, all the way through to, maybe up until, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it was all about the DVD collection and the CD collection, because I'm a dinosaur and I still buy CDs to this day. I will have, but
oh, dude, physical media forever.
Yes, I had to take some photos and send it to my friend because he literally didn't believe me that I owned any CDs. I'm like, here they are. That's Eminem's new one that came out last week. What do you want me to say? So it was more about movies and stuff like that. It kind of moved away from toys for a bit there, but I would still find myself getting like when the first Transformers movie came out, there was this really cool transforming Optimus Prime that made the rounds at the department stores. So, I'd get things like that, and I think I was still collecting the like wrestling toys, like the WCW Chris Jericho flashback toy. I remember really being happy with that one because that was just looked great. But I think it went more to movies and DVDs for a while until I sort of started hitting later years, like, getting up to near 30 years old, where I started thinking more like, yeah, you know what? I think I need to start getting toys. They look nice up on the shelf, on display, and everything like that. So I did drop out for quite a while in the middle there, for about 10 or so years.
Well, I think what's attractive about like toys, action figures, whatever, to me anyway, is I'm fascinated by the fact that they're works of art that we can buy and put on our shelves for, in general, a reasonable price.
Yeah, and very highly detailed works as well. Like, with 3D scanning and stuff these days, they all look, pretty much spot on, except for Mick Foley's WrestleMania last year. Oh, good Lord. What fresh hell is this? This is Event Horizon all over again.
Man, and I'm... because when that wave came out, what was it? It was Mick Foley, Kofi,
Matt
Hardy, and Booker T.
Yes, yeah.
And I knew I wanted Kofi and Booker T. Even though the Booker T is relatively inaccurate, like those boots are pretty inexcusable, but like I love Booker T, and we hadn't had one from that era before, so I knew I was going to buy Booker and Kofi. And I figured once I found that wave, I'd probably cave and just go ahead and buy Matt Hardy and Mick Foley as well, just to build the figure, just to build the Dangerous Danny Davis Build-A-Figure.
Yeah.
Because that's how they get you with the whole Build-A-Figure thing, whether it's Marvel Legends or whatever. When there's a Build-A-Figure, there's usually at least one that you're like, well, I guess I'll go ahead and get this just so I can build the guy.
And I'm sure they put like one of the most crucial parts of the Build-A-Figure in the Mick Foley one as well. Like, oh god, this Mick Foley face looks horrible. Better put the torso in there to make sure that it sells.
Well, and that's I was shocked because and I'm a pretty soft sell. Like if there's something that I even partly want, I'm probably going to walk out of the store with it. But when I saw that Mick Foley, I was like, fuck it, never mind, not buying those. So I've got Kofi and Booker, and I still, if that Foley hits like $5, maybe I'll get it.
So here's some value for that Foley. The exchangeable hands with the pointed fingers and the white wrist tape. If you got any other figures with the white wrist tape, it's really handy to have a exchangeable hand with like a pointing finger. I even had Triple H doing his customary pointing at the guy next to him with one of my Triple H figures.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, there's I got a little bit of value out of it, and honestly, I'll probably try and do a head swap with it if I can track down a Cactus Jack one, and then I think it'll be a pretty solid figure if you do that.
Yeah, if you could throw basically any other Mick Foley head on that, it's fine. Like, because from the shoulders down, it's a great representation of Foley in that era.
Yeah, it's a WrestleMania 22 death match with Edge,
which is that's what's so infuriating about it. Is to me that's a landmark match. I actually still have the Jakks Pacific put out a box set of Foley, Edge, and one of their foam hardcore titles. And I actually still have that hardcore title. It's hanging up on my wall right now.
Champ.
Edge and Foley are in a tote, and the reason they're in a tote is because Foley's shirt developed that.
Oh, yeah. That doesn't have any checkers on the back or something?
Well, no. It's got, okay. It's red, and it's got black, like, cross hatch on it. It's not even checked. It's literally just, like, cross lines, black lines. But it developed that goo, that sticky goo. And
the slime.
Yes, and it won't come off. I tried soap and water, and first of all, I got the soap and water, and it washed all the black lines off. They're gone. He's just in a red shirt now, but it's still sticky.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, that's it. But that match was so huge for me, and that set came out when I was still in the midst of collecting the Ruthless Aggression stuff, so that was like a huge set, and I really wish I'd just left it in the box, but I like that hardcore title so much. Yeah, right? Seriously. That's another thing. I'm very similar to you. Like, I get itchy for stuff that has like a personal meaning to me. Like, for example, Shawn Michaels and Jericho in '08. I know there's like a 2-pack of them in that era that looks awesome just in the box. Like, that's something, even though I don't display many things in the box, that's something that I would get and just keep exactly as is, because it has such a specific meaning to me. And my best friend is a huge Shawn Michaels fan. I'm a huge Chris Jericho fan. It was just, it was an amazing 6 months. Yeah, and that's an interesting thing too, because I open up almost everything I get, but every once in a while there's like a special piece that, whether the packaging is so cool, like actually today that Mr. T went on sale.
Yeah, it did. What is? Why is it blue? Why not make it red? I would have it if it was red, but the blue, I don't get it. I don't understand why they've chosen that color.
Yeah, there's always something, isn't there? There's always like one little detail that just doesn't quite make sense. But and apparently I lucked out on this thing. I didn't even realize, because I was sitting here at noon refreshing. I was already logged into Entertainment Earth. I was sitting here and I refreshed at noon. And it took a long time to like load, but I added it to my cart. I checked out. I bought it. No, like pretty much no problem. Like it took a little longer than just a regular purchasing of something, but I didn't have any issues. And I was like, holy cow, that was great. Because last year for Macho Man, the nightmare, I was there for that. They've been doing, what else? Something recently. Oh, Mezco. I don't know if you're following the 112 collected figures from Mezco at all.
I'm not, but I've been listening to your last few episodes, so if you've been I think I may have heard you mention this.
Yeah, they did a Michael Keaton Batman figure from the 1989 movie, and that was a nightmare. And then they recently offered a Christopher Reeve Superman. Right. Yeah. So for me, this Mr. T was easy peasy. And then I get into social media and the Wrestling Figure Podcast group, and I'm like, oh my gosh, people are having a bad time today. But
well, you know what? One good thing came out of this figure being announced. It reminded me to show my girlfriend Mr. T's Hall of Fame speech where he talks about his mother for 15 minutes, and we thoroughly enjoyed it. So.
Hey, that man has a song about mothers, so he absolutely deserves his time. But yeah, this, like that Mr. T, that packaging, that VHS packaging is so cool. I'll probably leave him in the box. That's probably a good one to get and then keep in the box kind of thing, because like I said, I do display mine sort of loose, so I wouldn't have any real sort of like desire to do that. But the packaging is beautiful. They've been hitting some really interesting good packaging lately with the Hardy Boys and the Undertaker as Kane, and the List Jericho a couple of years ago. Packaging can be very big deal. They need to do more with that stuff. Yeah, and that's especially when it is something like this, Mr. T, where we don't really have the rest of the elements for that match or that event to go with him. So
there is no match.
Well, no match. Yeah, right. It's a different thing. So he kind of stands on his own. So it's cool to put the effort into the packaging to make it more of an event item, I guess.
It's funny. You know what they should have done? They had Slim Jim Macho Man last year. They should have had Snickers Mr. T this year.
Well, Snickers Mr. T would be awesome. I have seen people who want Pasta Mania Hulk Hogan.
Oh, not me.
Oh, I'd be all about Pasta Mania Hulk Hogan. I would love to see a Chef Boyardee Mankind.
Wow. Is there a almost audition to be Metallica's bass guitar Hulk Hogan? Is that one coming out?
Oh my gosh. Sick burn.
But there was actually something I wanted to ask you when we finished this. There was something I wanted to ask you about as well. So
go ahead.
Well, it was more about GI Joes because GI Joes were never overly. It's really weird. Like the way that I've been thinking about it is like this. Like soft drink or fizzy drink is Coca-Cola.
Sure.
Like people just call it Coke, whatever it is. Takeaway is McDonald's. Like it's just that brand that supersedes what the actual product is. For a long time, any action figure in Australia was always called a GI Joe.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was. Even though I don't think we had the cartoon over here, or if we did, it was on like one day a week after school. Probably would have had basketball or something like that. But the toys were still like more expensive than some of the other ones out there, but they were also still really sought after. Like everybody wanted GI Joes, even though we didn't fully understand what it was or what these characters were, other than what was written like on the box. So I guess the question I'm asking is, was GI Joe popular over there because of the cartoon, and I think it was comics as well at some point? Is that what really drove it, or was it the toys that drove G.I. Joe?
I mean, in the 80s in America, any toy line that had an affiliated cartoon, that cartoon was for sure driving the sales. But the G.I. Joe toy line started in 1982. G.I. Joe, a real American hero, the 80s G.I. Joe that we're discussing now. And then in Europe, it was known as Action Force. And it was distributed by somebody different, but it was essentially the same toy line. The G.I. Joe comic book started before the cartoon did, but cartoons obviously have a much higher profile, get a lot more attention, and the cartoon started in 1984 or 5. We just recorded 2 G.I. Joe podcasts. I should know this off the top of my head. But the cartoon is absolutely what drove the toy line for those middle years. But honestly, in 1982, it just took off. It kind of moved under its own merits initially. For me personally, I started with Migos in the late 70s and early 80s, which were, the articulated superhero figures with like cloth outfits and stuff. And then Star Wars happened, and that was it. And that 3 3/4 inch action figure size just became the market standard, because you had the action figures and then you had the vehicles, and the vehicles were a huge part of play in that time. Well, then G.I. Joe came along, and rather than the 5 points of articulation that Star Wars had, which, by the way, 1982, we're waiting for Return of the Jedi to come out, but in the trials, Star Wars is kind of cooling off a little bit. And G.I. Joe hits, well, they've got elbows, they've got knees, they've got hips that do more than just move forward and back. And they've got this exciting card art, and they're military. And let me just tell you, America in the 80s, there was nothing cooler than the military.
Yes.
Like, that was hot stuff. So having that connection was just a really big deal. So Hasbro was able to launch this toy line and not even really need the cartoon or the comic books at first. And then, as it went on, they played a bigger and bigger role. And then once the cartoon hit, that was it, man. I mean, that was, once you've got that Monday through Friday, those kids after school eyeballs on your product, that's it. And it was the biggest thing for, I would say, from 84 to 87, G.I. Joe it ruled the toy aisles in America.
Yeah, and what I'm getting from that as well is it sounds like it's the same over here, is whatever makes it onto regular televised kind of broadcast, that's the toys that blow up the most. Like, I'm sure Ninja Turtles was on daily, but G.I. Joe wasn't, even though like I say, G.I. Joe's was still very popular. But I think that's just because, see, over here we inherit a lot of stuff from the US. So
sure.
Just from the TV shows, we would have been watching Tim Allen on Home Improvement in 1994, and Randy would be saying, "Hey, Dad, he stole my G.I. Joe," and we'd be like, "G.I. Joe? Ooh, what's that?" And then we see it in it was weird how the American culture just kind of, I don't know, is infiltrated the word? Infiltrated the Australian lexicon and everything so much, especially in the 90s when everything was on fire over there. It was everything was really, really good. Basketball and TV and everything was all having a real uprise. So it was always weird to see what would sort of come out, but then you would look at things like Pokemon, massive over here in the late 90s, because we're really close to Japan, and anime and Pokemon really found its way over here, with a lot of people that would move here and stuff from the nearby countries and stuff it just sort of created the anime culture and stuff as well. So it's interesting to see how these different genres of toys and entertainment have all sort of come together, and the mishmash that you end up with it, because you get some of the real big stuff, but you get some really obscure stuff like I don't know if you remember the TV cartoon called Cops. I'm really curious to see if you remember.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah?
Dude, so that's one of those little sort of side tangent toy lines that I got way into. Because
there is a toy line? Oh my God, I need them.
Oh yeah.
You're totally remember the cartoon.
You're talking about the cartoon Cops and Crooks with a fighting crime in a future time.
And they call me Bulletproof.
Yes. Oh, there is a toy line indeed. And what was so cool about that toy line is it hit right at the time when G.I. Joe was kind of starting to fade a little bit.
Interesting.
They're basically larger G.I. Joe figures. They have the same exact articulation. And as a matter of fact, Larry Hama, the guy that wrote all of the file cards for G.I. Joe and wrote all the comic books, he wrote the file cards for Cops as well.
Yeah, you know what? Now I'm thinking about it, there's a lot of similarities between G.I. Joe, Cops, just as far as the characters. They've all got these tubes and pipes and visors and missiles and things opening up.
Well, and one of the Cops characters is in his file card is actually the grandson of one of the G.I. Joes.
What? So
yes.
It's all the same timeline?
Yeah, well, I think it was just kind of an Easter egg that Larry Hama snuck in there, but there's no reason it can't be the same.
I'm all for that. I hope, as long as it's turbo two-tone, then I'll be happy. So
I think, oh gosh, I can't remember who it was. We just talked about this recently. I feel like it might have been Long Arm.
Long Arm. Wasn't Bounder and Blitz or Sundown?
No, well, Long Arm was the guy that actually looked like a regular cop, but he had the handcuff thing on his arm that would shoot out.
Yep.
But yeah, I remember Cops very well. I actually bought on Amazon. You can get the whole series for $8 or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, I definitely remember Cops.
Well, then the reason I bring that up is because that was one of those obscure shows that got really frequent, consistent, broadcasting. So I would say that not that more people would know Cops than G.I. Joe, but more people would have seen Cops than seen an episode of G.I. Joe.
Wow, that's interesting. I bet the explanation for that, obviously money is the root of everything, but I wonder if maybe Cops was a little cheaper to show in syndication over there.
I suspect that might be it. It was G.I. Joe and Transformers from the same company or the same broadcast company at all? The cartoons? They
were on the same channel. They were both produced by Sunbow, and I think Cops was also produced by that animation company. They're all Hasbro. But,
right, because Transformers was another one that was on very, very rarely, like once a week kind of thing.
And I would imagine just because G.I. Joe and Transformers were such higher profile, maybe they cost a little bit more.
Yeah,
right. That'd be interesting to sort of track down and figure out at some point.
I can imagine the president of Channel 9 getting the bill and going, $900 dues. We're not paying that for G.I. Joe. Tobias, are you ordering American cartoons again?
Well, on that note, we got to wrap this thing up. This has been an awesome conversation, kind of comparing cultures and seeing really more similarities than anything, I think. But to sign this off, is there anything else specific that you wanted to talk about, bring up, or speculate on before we go?
No, the only last little thing that I wanted to acknowledge is, just because we've been talking about G.I. Joe, is I don't know if you had these over there, maybe they were like 20-cent toys, but we had a toy line called Corpse, or Core.
Yes,
I always called them Corpse.
Yeah, by Leonard Toys.
Yes, they were those. We used to get those over here all the time with like vehicles. They were dirt cheap, so I had so many Corpse toys. Like, that was my G.I. Joe. So I definitely got the G.I. Joe experience, but it was like a slightly off-brand G.I. Joe experience. But it was IG Joe.
That's the cool thing about, being a kid with toys, though, is you're using your imagination to play, and I think there's something to be said for something just being a good toy. And Leonard has been putting out good toys, even if they didn't have a license attached, for decades now.
Yeah, no, they were very they were great toys to have. Just having so many of them meant you could just, hey, there's 10 guys in this car. Now it's blown up. All right, there's 10 guys over here. Bye. Well,
it's nice when you're playing, Army, to actually have an army.
Yeah. It was always a good time.
Well, Adam, thank you so much for coming on talking about toys. I'd love to have you back on sometime in the future for any kind of pop culture conversation. Do you have any kind of social media presence? Can we follow you anywhere on Instagram, Twitter, anything like that?
Well, I won't drop any names just yet, but I did just start recording a podcast last week, so the plan is to have some episodes out in a few months. So hopefully if I'm back on the show, I should have some social media stuff. But until then, stay tuned to this podcast if you want to hear anything more from me.
Awesome. And we'll, as soon as you've got your show up and going, we will post that in the Needless Things podcast Facebook group. We'll let everybody know.
That's it. Well, we're actually doing reviews of TV shows and movies, so maybe I can get you on to review G.I. Joe Retaliation with our friend Dwayne.
Oh, I'd love to. Absolutely, man. let me know when you're doing it. I'm in.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, man.
Thanks. Have a good day, mate. Bye.
Cops and Crooks, bigger than G.I. Joe. Just let that sink in for a minute. That's wacky. Which is exactly the kind of stuff I wanted to learn and find out in doing, hopefully more of these international episodes. So hopefully more of these to come. Please join the Needless Things Podcast Facebook group. Follow Needless Things Podcast on Instagram. Phantom Troublemaker on Instagram, which is where you can send your messages if you are an international person. Check out the Needless Things YouTube channel. There are a pretty good number of toy reviews up there now that the kids like to call unboxings. So that's when I put my hashtags out there. That's hashtag unboxing. Check out the Audible Interlude G.I. Joe podcast. 2 episodes are available now, or I guess 1 episode and 1 premiere called Mission Zero, which I just thought sounded really cool. Execute Chapter 66. Lots of episodes of that out, more coming soon. I think you can probably count on them being part of NeedlessCon. Hint, hint. As well as other exciting things that Needless Things is known for. So stay tuned for everything. And of course, the aforementioned Needless Things podcast Facebook group is your best resource to see what's going on and when, and also to vote in things that we may be having votings for. Also, hint, hint. Seriously, though, get in there, because we've got some really fun stuff coming up that you guys will get to interact with. There might even be prizes. Obligation-free prizes, because I love you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Needless Things podcast. You're the best. You can find the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Downcast, or in the ears of a Trader Vic's employee. Love you. Mean it. Uh-huh.